Tradescantia Zebrina, one of my most favorite plant problems of the year. This plant has this absolutely beautiful zebra stripes that you can see right here. It's got these beautiful purple color underneath all of the leaves here. And on top of all of that, the whole plant shimmers like little fine glitter in the sun, which is absolutely beautiful. I'm not sure if the camera can pick it up. One of my problems with this plant is that it seems really underrated. And one of the reasons why it's underrated is because it's common, and it's common because it's actually invasive. So being that it's invasive, it's super easy to care for. You know, out in the wild, these things will basically live in anything, in almost any kind of situation. And that also makes it really good for beginners. So if you're a beginner, this is an absolutely great starter plant for you. If you have friends who are beginners that you want to give a plant problem to, these are absolutely great plants to get them started. It will definitely be one of those plants that stays happy for you, and you know, it's really enjoyable to grow. During this episode, we're going to talk about care, look, water propagation, and replanting. So let's get started. Care for this plant is super easy. When you touch this plant, you can immediately tell that it's a little bit more succulent than your other plants. Even from the leaves all the way to the stems, you can kind of tell just by feeling it. It's got a little bit of a kind of cactusy vibe to it. What that tells you is it can take a little bit of extra drying out. So if you're underwater it, if you're fresh to, you know, having houseplants, then this is a great plant for you because it's going to be able to take a little bit of drying out, a little bit of backing off. And even in my experience as someone who has had houseplants for quite a while now, this plant, I've forgotten it maybe 5 times now. It gets a little bit droopy. It's gonna have a droopy look to it. It's gonna tell you immediately when it's time to water. And you forget it, if you forget it for a day, maybe 2, after it kind of droops for you, then it's still gonna be totally fine. I've had this plant bounce back, like I said, 5 times now, and it's got no problems. When you see it droop, go ahead and water it. And if you wanna catch it before it droops, what you do is you take your finger, and just like pretty much all of my other plants, you're gonna take your finger, stick it into the soil about 1 inch, and see if it's wet. If it's wet, you're gonna feel that it's wet. It's gonna feel a little bit cooler down to about 1 inch, and your finger might come out with a bunch of dirt stuck to it. That means it's absolutely wet. So this plant, I actually just watered it, so my finger is gonna look like, you know, covered in dirt. But yeah, stick your finger in about 1 inch. That's the best way to do it, and you'll be able to tell if it's wet. If it's wet, don't water it. If it's dry, go ahead and water it. And when you water it, you're gonna water it completely. So you'll take your watering can and you'll make sure to water it all the way around. Make sure it's super even and let it drain out the bottom.
As for placement, I like to give my plant a sunny south-facing window to sit at. That way it can get as much sun as possible inside the house, and when it gets all the sun that it needs, it will end up giving you these zebra stripes. If you don't give it enough sun, then it'll end up starting turning purple. Maybe you like the look, purple's okay too.
About the look. So these plants, you're gonna actually get quite a few options for how they look in that house. What it does naturally, what it wants to do naturally is it wants to send runners out, and it wants to grow very long and crawl around on the floor. Inside the house, we really don't have that kind of options, so I kind of stray away from that, and I take it upon myself to make it a little bushier. In keeping them bushy, what I do is I look for parts of them that are a little bit too long. Now this, I'm actually kind of liking the way this looks right now, so I'm not going to cut this plant up. But what I have here is an example of the mother plant that it came from. And if you can see here in the picture, it actually has some aerial roots here that are coming out, and this one, this piece right here is a little bit stringy for me, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut it off for the video here. So what happens is I'm gonna look for a piece that I want to cut off, and know that eventually it's gonna sprout from these 2 nodes here underneath it. That's what I've seen from this plant anyway. So for this one, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this one right here at the node. I'll take this and I'll set it aside for water propagation later. About water propagation. So these plants, they're gonna grow super fast for you, like you've already seen, and you're gonna get a ton of these little cuttings. You can totally just put these into the compost, it's totally cool, but if you love your plants like I do, then you pretty much always water propagate any cuttings that you take. With this plant, it's super easy. What you're gonna do is you're gonna actually take it and just make sure that there aren't any leaves on the bottom of it, right? That's gonna go into the water. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut these leaves off at the bottom. And this is enough this is enough stem for me, and it even has these little aerial roots which are super ready to go. I'm gonna go ahead and use some cloning gel for this. The cloning gel is not a requirement. Oh, that's a ton. Cloning gel is not a requirement. It's just got root developing hormones in it that the plants are gonna release anyway. It's just gonna speed up propagation a little bit. So I'm gonna take this and put it in a smaller cup, a smaller tube. I actually am using a shot glass here to allow it to root. I'm gonna take this and just put it in a sunny windowsill, and this is gonna water propagate over about the span of 2 weeks maybe. It's gonna root super fast. The roots are super delicate. So as you can see in the side view here, these roots are about 4 inches long now, and they're definitely ready to go into the dirt. So next up we have planting. How to plant your water propagations. So today I've got 2 examples on what you can do with your water propagations. The first one I've already shown, it's got 4-inch roots. It's definitely ready to get out of the water. What I'm gonna do with this one is I'm gonna go ahead and put it into a pot. This pot I'm gonna put it in is just a standard nursery cup. It's pretty flimsy. It's not really the thing that I want it to live in forever, but it's super easy and super lightweight to give to someone, and there's no worry about it being the pot that they don't want, because it's designed to be thrown away or recycled. So I'm gonna go ahead and recycle this. I'm gonna go ahead and pot this one. It's gonna be super easy, just like all the other ones. You're just gonna hold it in the middle of the pot and put some dirt in it, tap it down a little bit, make sure that it's gonna hold right, and that's really basically it. From there, I'm gonna take some water, and I'm gonna go ahead and water it nice and thoroughly, nice and evenly, and make sure that it drains out the bottom. It's important to note that watering these plants and getting the drain out the bottom is what you want here, because these plants actually came out of the water. So with roots that grew in the water, these are actually water roots. They're good for being in the water. They need to acclimate, and they need time to acclimate to soil. So you want to make sure, at least for the first couple days, that your water propagations, after you put them into dirt, that the dirt is pretty wet. What I'll do with this water propagation after I plant it like this is I'll take it and I'll put it back over at my prop box where it was propagating. It's a little bit warmer over there, the humidity is a little bit higher, but I'll put it back where it was water propagating. That way it can acclimate more and focus on the roots instead of having to figure out what's going on in the air around it. The other option for you, I think, is a little bit more fun even, is you can take your water propagations and put them back into the same pot that they came from. So for me, like I said, I really like my plants to be bushier, and that's exactly what I get to do here. So I can take cuttings from the further out parts of the plant and bring them back into the pot to have the pot bush out even faster. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. First, I'll take this one here. This is what the roots look like. And I'm gonna go ahead and put this one in the side here. So this will go into the side, just like that. put it in. So here you can see the roots there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit more dirt on top of it. So I just have this dirt sitting here from the other one. Put some dirt on top of it. Maybe move this in here so maybe not, you won't be able to see. I'll do it for YouTube, make a mess. But yeah, so I'll put that there, and now look, so that's there. It's gonna set. It's gonna take a little bit of time for it to grow, no worries, but it eventually will. Same thing with this one. I'm gonna put it back in. I'm gonna put it back into the pot that it came from. So this is what the roots look like from here. These roots are about 1 inch long. And I'll go ahead and I want to see this one in the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and dig a little hole in the middle. Try not to damage the roots too much. Damaging the roots a little bit is okay. You don't really want to, but as much as you can avoid it, but to make space in the pot, I think it's worth it. So I'm going to go ahead and put this dude in here and put a little bit more dirt on top of it, just to make sure that those roots that you know, the roots that it grew are not exposed. And I'll go ahead and give it a little bit of water. So it's already been watered, but I want to make sure these water roots are comfortable in my home. Yeah, so that's you can see right here the extra purple leaf is the new one, and that's also the new one. So this plant is going to continue to get a little bit bushier for me. My final thoughts on Tradescantia Zebrina. For anyone who's new to houseplants, this is going to be an absolute beautiful plant for you to start with. It grows super fast, it's super pretty, it's got these glittery leaves, and basically anyone who has one, if you've got a friend who has one, don't be shy about asking for one. It's a great chance to, you know, get a cutting, go through the whole process, put it in some water, let it propagate, watch the roots. That's so fun to do. And then put it in some dirt for yourself, you know. After you put it in some dirt, it's going to take a little bit of time to grow. It's going to be a little bit slow, but eventually those roots will grow their little root hairs and they're going to expand, and your plant's going to start growing super fast for you. Just be on the lookout for it. When you do, you'll have yourself a plant problem. So with that, if you liked the video, like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all later.